Welcome back on a Friday afternoon. So this is the very last part of our grants week. I must say it's been a very, very interesting week. So much information, met so many people, so many discussions and collaborations. So here we are at the last part where we have representatives from the Malta Council for Science and Technology who are going to present to us funding opportunities available. And then after that, we'll have a presentation from the internationalization unit as well. We won't be having the coffee break so that we finish off a bit earlier. So without further ado, we'll have a presentation from Ms. Abigail Aquilina, Executive of MCST. Hello, Abigail.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for the invitation. So basically, I will be sharing my screen if it's not an issue. So I will be carrying a presentation with respect to the Fusion program. So let me first, during this presentation, introduce the Fusion program. So Fusion is the national funding program which drives and supports local research and innovation. It provides necessary support for researchers and also technologists to turn their innovative ideas into a market-ready reality. So the Fusion program has been developed further this year as part of the Council's drive to support the local research community. Now, since 2014, the Fusion program has provided over 12 million in funding for research and also innovation. Fusion incorporates a wide portfolio of funding programs which accommodate an extensive technology readiness spectrum and also range from ones which are non-thematic to others which are more specific and also niche, therefore raising the level and the profile of research and innovation in Malta. Now, the following figure summarizes the different programs which fall under the Fusion portfolio of programs. So basically, let me start off with the Research Excellence Program. So it was introduced in last year as a pilot school, and it targets early stage basic research through a bottom-up non-thematic approach. Therefore, funds are going to be allocated for early stage research in order to develop an innovative idea. Now, if the research is at a more advanced level, one can tap into the Commercialization Voucher program. And therefore, throughout these funds, one can determine the market and the commercial potential of their idea. Given the outcomes of the Commercialization Voucher program, one can move into the Technology Development Program, which is the funding program in order to carry out research and development of this idea, and therefore through a collaborative consortium. Now, there is also a plan to have a lighter version, a fast-track TDP lighter version. However, further information will be provided closer to the launch of this program. Last but not least, also the Council has been launching special programs which are thematic programs, and therefore these intend to address immediate national needs or market failures. So in this case, during this year, we had the infectious diseases program given the pandemic. So the next section of the presentation is going to be about the Research Excellence Program. Now, a fundamental activity that has not been addressed by funding initiatives till 2019 was early stage research. Therefore, the Research Excellence Program was designed by MCST, and the pilot school was launched during October 2020 in order to improve the quality of research on the Maltese Islands. The primary aim of the Research Excellence Program is to spur the growth of new knowledge through experimental evidence following scientific hypotheses. And it does this by funding novel early-stage research, which boasts a high degree of scientific excellence through a bottom-up non-thematic approach. The program is intended to support projects of both national but also international relevance, with the possibility of commercial applications, which could add to the Maltese economy. Now, for projects with commercial applicability, the Research Excellence Program targets research, development, and also innovation at the initial technology readiness levels, therefore between TRL1 and TRL4. Therefore, the Research Excellence Program intends to fund research where basic principles have been observed, a technology concept has been formulated, and then we can move to process validation in a laboratory setting. Now, in order to summarize the aims of the Research Excellence Program, these include to build capacity in new multidisciplinary areas, to generate new knowledge and build capacity for future areas, fund early stage impactful research, which could ultimately lead to new avenues for economic growth, and strengthen and contribute existing collaborations. Moving on to the program design and parameters. So only sole applicants are eligible to apply under the Research Excellence Program. Therefore, there's going to be one beneficiary as the applicant. Applicants would need to be established or incorporated by the date of application submission, in case, for example, of private companies, and the different entities which are eligible to apply for funding include Maltese public entities, Maltese public research and knowledge dissemination organizations, higher education institutes, Maltese industrial entities, as well as professional bodies, NGOs, and non-profit making entities. Now, with respect to financing, eligible entities should opt for either option, so either option A or option B. Option A is where the state aid de minimis regulation apply and projects will be financed at 90%, whereas option B is where state aid is not applicable and therefore projects will be 100% financed. Following the whole process, those awarded projects will be financed with 75% as pre-financing, and the other 25% will be kept as a retention and released at the end of the project. Now, some important parameters include the duration. So for the Research Excellence Program, projects should have a duration of 12 months. The maximum possible grant is that of 50,000, inclusive of the indirect costs, and the Research Excellence Program is launched as a single call per year during the first quarter. Now, the projects are evaluated on the basis of the below criteria. So we have scientific excellence, impact, and implementation. And given the scope of the program to fund early stage impactful research, the scientific excellence holds more weighting than the other two sections. Now, as a summary, in order to conclude the section about the Research Excellence Program, so till now we have had two calls, the call of 2020 and call of this year, which is being concluded. So in total, we had 35 applications last year and 37 applications in this year. So last year in the pilot launch, we managed to fund 7 projects, and this year we are going to fund 11 projects. So the amount of funding is around 338,000 for the 2020 call, whereas this year the 11 projects are going to be worth 540,000. The funded projects, so we have had 6 projects from the University of Malta and 1 project from MCST during the pilot call, and further information can be provided on the MCST website. And this year we're going to fund 7 projects from the University of Malta and 4 projects from other entities. And following the grant agreement signature, more information will be provided also on the website. And during this slide, one can see different research which is being carried out with respect to the Research Excellence Program. Basically, since it is non-thematic, the research can be from different teams ranging from health to even transport and any scientific area. Now, more information will be provided with respect to the commercialization voucher program by my colleague Claudine. So then I will follow my section with respect to the technology development program. Now, the technology development program provides financial support for research, development, and innovation within the smart specialization areas, which are identified in the Malta's National Research and Innovation Strategy 2020. So the technology development program is thematic. Priority areas are set to the selection process of the precursor, which is the commercialization voucher program. Now, on the contrary of the Research Excellence Program, the Technology Development Program is a research and development funding program, and it targets research at the technology readiness level, which are more advanced, so between TRL4 and TRL7, where the technology developed eventually can get commercialized. So at the end of the Technology Development Program, there's going to be a system prototype, which is demonstrated in an operational environment. In order to summarize the aims of the Technology Development Program, so it is intended to fund applied innovative research and ensure knowledge transfer, build on successful outcomes of the CVP, commercialize developed technologies which have market potential, and establish collaborations both between the public entities and the industrial entities. Important parameters with respect to the program design. So we have the applicant must be a consortium in this case, which is composed of at least one Maltese public entity and one Maltese industrial entity. No single entity can have more than 75% of the allocated grant value. A pre-finance grant of up to €295,000 can be requested, and the project can have a duration of between 1 to 3 years. Also, there are a further €5,000 which are allocated for the organization of a half-day event. With respect to financing, there are also two routes. So there are option A and option B with different funding modalities. So I have either the GBER route or the de minimis route for option A, where state aid applies, and option B, where state aid is not applicable. And in the case of option A, GBER, co-financing rate depends on the entity size, effective collaboration, and research activity. And option A, de minimis, co-financing rate would be that of 75% of eligible costs. And finally, where state aid is not applicable, co-financing rate is that of 100%. Now, also the Technology Development Program is launched as a single call per year during the first quarter, and the projects are evaluated on the basis of the below criteria. So we have effectiveness of consortium and resources, the coherence and effectiveness of proposal implementation, the exploitation of results and dissemination, and the commercialization and the further development. Now, in order to conclude the section about the Technology Development Program, we have had different success stories during the past years. So since 2015, over 50 beneficiaries have benefited of the Fusion R&I Technology Development Program, and we have different examples, and further information can be provided on the website. Now, two case studies include Data Deer, for example. This technology was developed by this consortium represented by Scope Solutions and University of Malta. It was a project which has received 161,000 in funds through Fusion, and it serves as a cloud-based solution for finance and business professionals. The objectives of the Data Deer project was to create a series of innovative tools which help SMEs transition their business to the cloud without having to reinvent all internal processes as well as reports. But they retain the ability to push data in the cloud from familiar softwares. And another example includes SETMET. So this technology was developed by the SETMET consortium, which is represented by the University of Malta in collaboration with Hands-On Systems and the Malta Air Traffic Services. It was a project which received 194,000 worth of funding through Fusion, and it developed an innovative solution for engineless taxiing based on the use of self-driving electric tow trucks to tow aircraft between the gates and the runway, therefore reducing the emissions, noise, and also maintenance costs. Thank you for your attendance and also for your interest in our programs. For further information or otherwise, if you feel that you would like to schedule a one-to-one meeting, kindly contact us. There's also more information provided on our website. And I will pass the floor now to my colleague, Claudine, who is going to give a presentation on the Commercialization Voucher Program.
So thank you, Abigail. Thanks, Angie. Good afternoon, everyone. I administer the CVP program. I've been doing so for the past 4 years. The program is part of the Fusion portfolio, and the call is actually launched today. It's going to be open for the next 6 weeks. Angie, I will then need you to please provide me with the deadline because our deadline is the 20th of August. However, I'm aware that for the purposes of submitting the proposals to our SSD, you might have an earlier deadline. So we need to clarify that with the applicant. So I'm going to
I will
sharing
announce
my
it
screen
after.
now. Okay, so as I was saying, The commercialization voucher program, which is normally launched twice a year, this year will be launched just this once, because as Abigail explained earlier, we have introduced new programs such as the Research Excellence Program and the Infectious Diseases Program. And due to this, and due to the fact that the CVP has now been revamped, we have launched the CVP just this once. So the CVP supports researchers, micros, and SMEs to seek the commercial potential of their research and to start new activities or else to accelerate existing ones by enhancing their competitiveness through collaboration with R&D institutions. The program is intended to assist prospective applicants of the TDP in order to prepare them better in terms of project proposal and validation. It could also assist beneficiaries of previous or current national R&I programs. So a bit about how the Fusion program works. For example, you have an idea, you would like to see whether there's a future for this idea. And the Fusion CVP will take your idea through two initial stages. This has changed because in the past, as some of you may be familiar, this used to be two stages in the second stage, and now it's just one stage. So before we used to have three stages, and now it's just two stages. So basically, in the beginning, in the IP check, we will check whether anyone else has had your same idea. So we can focus your efforts on truly innovative ideas. Then if your idea is indeed original, we'll support it through commercialization and feasibility study. So during the study, you'll establish whether your idea will have high chances of success on the international markets. You will find out how much the final product will cost to the end customer, and you'll ensure that you're indeed competitive in the market. Through this feasibility study, we'll make sure that the idea proposed has a good chance of success. So the feasibility studies covered by the first two support tools will show you the potential of your idea and the probability of it making it into the market. So if you successfully complete the CVP, as Abigail rightfully pointed out earlier in her presentation, you'll be eligible to apply for the TDP and receive a further grant of 300,000 euros to cover for the technological development of your idea. So even after you develop the technology needed for your idea, we can assist you further with an additional 3 steps, which are the optional vouchers. So if applicable, your idea can apply for an IP registration, optional voucher, so that you can protect your intellectual property, which comes out from your innovative idea. Then you can also elicit to take up a business plan or an investors meeting voucher or both. These are both important, for example, when you need to discuss with investors or funding agencies so as to commercialize your product or your technology. Sorry, for some reason. Okay, so since 2014, the program has been running since 2014, 7 consecutive years, and today the CVP has funded 126 proposals out of 267 applications. So there are two possible routes, state aid route and non-state aid route. So option A would be the state aid route. Potential applicants under the state aid option of this scheme are undertakings which carry out an economic activity within the meaning of Article 107. So eligible undertakings are defined as undertakings which have an operating base in Malta and are planning to carry out R&I activities. These may be a partnership constituted under the Companies Act, a limited liability company, a professional body, an NGO, or a non-profit making entity, and this includes also foundations. Potential applicants emanating from university would typically fall under the non-state aid route, which is the option B. This applies to public entities and public research and knowledge dissemination organizations that do not carry out uneconomic activities. These entities may be eligible for participation under the non-state aid route and shall be required to declare themselves as a public research and knowledge dissemination organization which carries out a non-economic activity in line with primary activities of research organizations and research infrastructures and or knowledge transfer activities where they are conducted either by the research organization or research infrastructures. So please refer to Chapter 2 of the Commission notice on the notion of state aid referred to in Article 107, subsection 1 of the functioning of the European Union for further guidance. The call for project proposals, as I mentioned at the beginning, opens today and the call will remain open for 6 weeks. Please check with the RSSD for your deadline. The selection and funding of proposals under this program shall be on a competitive basis. So applicants should refer to the eligibility criteria in sections 2.1 and 2.3 of the rules of participation, which will be attached to the application on our website. The submission, the evaluation, and the selection process of the project applications will be in the form of a one-stage process. So you have to ensure as applicants that you completely comply with the rules of participation 2021-2023 before you submit your applications, because no amendments or negotiation will be allowed after submission. The legal representative of the participating organization of the applicant must sign off on the application and enter the signature electronically. And this will also apply to relevant declarations found with the application form. All the applications will be evaluated according to the procedure outlined under Section 3 of the Rules for Participation, and moreover, requests made by the applicant to allow negotiations on the content of the proposals after submission will be rejected. Any text within the submitted application which exceeds the prescribed maximum word count and page limits shall be disregarded during the scientific evaluation process. Only completed application forms will be accepted. The application form must be fully finalized, dated, and digitally signed by the entity's legal representative. And the application has to include the signed state aid or non-state aid form. We no longer require the VAT form to be included, so you do not have to submit that. The state aid declaration form, however, is compulsory and the applicant will be solely responsible for the veracity of the contents of his application. The interested applicants are to submit their application online, electronically, to voucher.mcst@gov.mt, and applications should not be received any later than midnight on the 20th of August 2021. And please, I reiterate to check with NG with regards to the earlier deadline which you might have with RSSD. Something about the evaluation criteria. They haven't changed much. However, the implementation section has changed with regards to the threshold. Before, the threshold used to be 15%, and now it's 20%. So we have scientific excellence, impact, implementation. In order for a proposal to be successful, all thresholds need to achieve an overall score of 62% for them to be eligible for funding. So now I'd like to provide you with some pointers when it comes to the three-tier evaluation criteria, and I shall start with scientific excellence. So proposals will be evaluated for their innovation potential and the level of ambition in terms of going beyond the current state of the art. So the evaluators will scrutinize the extent to which the state of the art has been well defined, and the technology's innovation potential explained. The applicant has to clearly define the extent to which the proposal purports to contribute towards maximizing national economic, social, and environmental goals. You have Annex 1, which is included with the application, and it is here where you are requested to include a pictorial representation and illustrations of the current state of the art and how your technology, service, product, etc., purpose to go beyond the current state of the art. This annex is not mandatory, however, it does help you and it does help the evaluator understand exactly what is the innovation factor in your technology. Another factor which is considered by the scientific evaluator is the level of credibility of the proposed approach. This comes into play when they think about the gap which needs to be bridged between the project's current TRL and the proposed stages. So this can be achieved through, for example, demonstration, through testing, prototyping or pilot lines, scale-up studies, miniaturization, design, performance verification, market replication, etc., etc. Moreover, the market needs which the product aims to satisfy needs to be properly outlined. So that was all about the scientific excellence. Now, with regards to impact, the applicant needs to clearly describe and quantify the economic, social, and environmental impact which the product, service, or technology which is being proposed in the application will eventually leave once it's commercialized. So we go into the merits of who will the users of the technology be. Will the proposed technology, product, or service, for instance, target both the national and the international market? What tangible and intangible benefits will the project expected to deliver? So furthermore, under the impact section, the applicant must provide a clear description on the dissemination and exploitation measures to access the full range of potential users of the technology, product, or service. And finally, the implementation section. Under this sections, the evaluators will examine whether the entity has or plans to have the technical skills and commercial awareness to ensure the successful implementation of the project. It will inspect, for instance, whether the entity envisages to have a sound management structure to implement the project and whether the entity has a planned technical infrastructure which is tailored to the needs emanating from the ambition of the project. So under this section, you are expected to clearly define and highlight the critical risks related to the project's implementation. I would like to take the opportunity before I go to the next slide to point out that although these proposals are not restricted, these sections are not restricted with a word count, neither of these three sections, please do keep the length of your responses reasonable. Okay, so I have handpicked one success story, mainly the Flask project, purely because the consortium made use of all of the optional vouchers that are available, and this had a very positive effect. So Flask was a collaborative effort between the University of Malta and MetServe PLC, and Flask is a technology focused on a novel form of offshore energy storage, which used seawater as a coolant. And the TDP itself was used to fund a small-scale prototype to serve as a proof of concept and ultimately leverage more funds and serve as the basis of a patent. And today, Flask, in fact, has been patented in a number of jurisdictions and has received a statement of feasibility from DNVGL, which is the world's largest classification society. The technology has also been recognized by the Solar Impulse Foundation as one of the 1,000 solutions to change the world. The University of Malta has recently spun out a company called Flask BV, which is just strategically established in the Netherlands at the prestigious Buccaneer Delft Offshore and Energy Accelerator, and the spin-off was created after growing commercial interest from oil and gas service companies and offshore wind energy developers. So although the road is tough, the team is still actively exploring concrete opportunity to bring this technology to market. So thank you so much for your interest and attendance. The call, as I said earlier, launched today, and I will be super happy to answer any questions or organize one-to-ones with regards to your innovation. If you need any assistance with filling in your applications, you can reach me either by email or else by calling me on this number. I believe that the presentation will be circulated. Okay, this is all from my end. Thank you very much for your attention. If you need any further information, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I will now pass the floor to Isaac Massa, who will speak to you about the space education program, space research program. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudine. So let me share my screen. Okay, so are you seeing my presentation, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, I'm Isaac. I'm the program owner of the Space Research Fund. The Space Research Fund, it's a scheme which is in collaboration with the European Space Agency. However, the funds are national funds and not European Space Agency funds. This initiative stemmed from the implementing arrangement between Malta and the European Space Agency, and through various technical consultation meetings, it was uncovered that Malta possesses a strong ICT sector, and thus exploiting satellite imagery is a feasible thing for Malta, for the Maltese ecosystem, and can be considered as a gateway to the space industry. So before I'll explain the parameters of the Space Research Fund. Basically, when we say the term space, we often associate the term with extraterrestrial activities, rocket launches, exploration in deep space, and sending rover to Mars. However, before we dive into the specifics, there are two terms which must be defined. One of them is upstream applications, which are associated with development of satellites and rockets, for example. It could be related to hardware and software development, whilst the second term is downstream application, which uses data from existing space infrastructure and which can be used to tackle societal challenges, such as, for example, Earth observation data or even GPS data, so to speak. In this case, the Space Research Fund is dedicated for developing downstream applications, which uses current space infrastructure, in particular using Earth observation satellites for the benefit of Malta. So the fundamental aims of this fund are to financially support the R&D and I in the downstream Earth observation sector to tackle societal challenges in Malta. And since this is an embryonic sector in Malta, we aim to capacity build local capacity in order to have a competent HR and using Earth observation data. So who can apply? All Maltese legal entities can apply. There are two different research streams which you can choose. You can apply up to 150,000 euros under three funding modalities, which are de minimis, GBER, and state aid not applicable. For the de minimis and state aid not applicable, the funding rate is at 100%, whilst for the GBER, funding rates apply. The project duration we're speaking about is of 20 months across two stages. And the 150,000 euros can be used for personnel, specialized equipment, consumables, subcontracting, and more. Typical consortium compositions we are speaking about, you can apply as a sole beneficiary. Otherwise, you can apply with public-private, public-public, or even private-private. You can even have 3 partners within a project, and so on and so forth. So basically, what are the kinds of personnel you require in order to execute a Space Research Fund project? A multidisciplinary team is required. We're speaking about remote sensing competencies, people who can interpret EO data on a geographical information system. You need scientists. It varies according to the thematic area chosen, such as agronomists, geologists, and environmental. Engineers in deploying and designing in situ sensors, weather stations, ICT personnel with artificial intelligence and computer vision competencies, which can help automate the process when utilizing satellite imagery. You may require personnel with specific licenses, such as drone flying permits. And also you can acquire expertise from abroad, since we know that Earth observation is still at an embryonic stage in Malta, so participation of foreign companies or consultants is allowed by a reasonable justification. However, if they are to participate as partners, they are not eligible for funding. So just to give you an idea what can you do with Earth observation data, here are some satellites which provide data for free, which can be exploited for free. There are various satellites manned by the Copernicus program, ESA, which is a joint program between the European Space Agency and the European Commission. And from these satellites, we acquire a variety of data. For example, Sentinel-1 uses radar vision in order to detect ships and oil spills. And Sentinel-2, which have a hyperspectral sensor, and which can be used to detect the vegetation health, for example, in agriculture. Sentinel-3 is used for ocean color, for oceanography, for example. Sentinel-4 is used for even 5. They're used for atmospheric composition, atmospheric monitoring. And Sentinel-6, which is the recent satellite which was launched last November, includes a high precision altimetry to detect sea level height across the globe. So with a diverse data comes diverse thematic areas. It really depends on your creativity, but we're speaking about atmospheric monitoring, for example, developing early warning systems to ensure that the crops grow healthier. You can monitor the marine environment for marine safety, sustainable fisheries, and even for sea surface temperature forecasting models. You can also use data to monitor the land use change, precision agriculture, and even for preserving cultural heritage. You can use such data for climate and weather monitoring, and also, as I mentioned previously, for developing early warning system in case of floods and search and rescue. So these are funded thematic areas. The first one was about data fusion and hydrodynamical modeling of the Maltese coastal areas. The second one was about developing crop patterns to optimize agricultural processes. The third one is trying to detect chlorophyll and total suspended matter around the Maltese coastal waters. The fourth one is about cultural heritage, and they're analyzing different types of roofs using drone and satellite imagery. The fifth one is about air quality monitoring and weather prediction. In 2020, we funded to about land change in coastal areas to detect hazardous areas, and the other one, detection of water usage in agricultural processes. So when you apply for the Space Research Fund, you have to consider what kind of research you will be doing. So there are two streams, as I mentioned earlier, with different technology readiness level. So stream 1 covers from 1 to 4, and stream 2 covers from 5 and beyond. So in stream 1, the beneficiary is recommended to include at least one research or knowledge dissemination organization. And under the research prospect and impacts, the prospects of the proposal have medium importance. It is recommended that the proposal makes reference to an eventual case study or end user of the research being proposed. And under stream 2, it's more practical and more commercial, and also more operational. So the beneficiary or consortium preferably includes an end user of technology under development. Furthermore, it is recommended that the beneficiary or consortium includes at least one industrial entity. Prospects of the proposal have a high importance under this stream. A credible route to commercialization which promises a saleable product rooted in the needs of the end user is important. So including the end user is a must under stream 2. So there are 3 evaluation criteria, which are excellence, impact, and implementation. Excellence should demonstrate how the proposal is innovative. Under impact should include material on how the research findings would influence society and markets. Under implementation, which is the route proposed to deploy the project with attention to its feasibility. And these are very important as a proposal will be assessed on these criteria. There are also sub-criteria, but they are further elaborated in the rules for participation, and they do not differ from year to year. When you apply under stream 1 and stream 2, there are different weightings, so you must take into account the different weighting criteria. So one of the first research projects have been concluded, and we will be holding a dissemination event on 27th July. The event will be disseminated via the Esplora Facebook page. And if you're interested in the Space Research Fund, this is one of our success stories. So visit the Esplora page and the Esplora Facebook page. And if you're interested, please register for the event. The registration, I believe, will be online in a few weeks or a few days. And it could be important for you. It could give you a familiar how satellite data can be used. This particular project uses sea surface temperature data from Copernicus and the NASA Landsat satellite in order to develop high resolution forecasting models. I think that is all from my end. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Any more information can be found on our website, and any queries, please do not hesitate to contact me on the email shown here. Thank you very much.